Hey, it's Chelsea, founder of Mama's Modern Village, and I am so glad you are here. I'm a motherhood therapist, matrescence coach, village builder, and most importantly, a mama myself. My mission with this series is twofold. One, to bring you crucial conversations with changemakers and thought leaders, experts in the world of motherhood and beyond, that only strengthen your own inner knowing and intuition. And secondly, to have casual conversations like a coffee date with women and mamas just like yourself that are raw, real, and relatable. We all need a good mama friend. Heck, we all need a friend these days, and we're here to be yours. Disclaimer, this conversation is not intended to replace any clinical advice and is intended for educational purposes only. Without further ado, here's today's conversation. Bryana, I am so excited and forever grateful to have you joining Mama's Modern Village today. I know that I found you on Instagram through Conscious Mommy, and then just now in our conversation was like, wait, we have to pause this because you're speaking so much of, I think, my mission with Mama's Modern Village, but you're also speaking to the why behind this revolution of conscious and respectful parenting. And before we go down the tangent of boundaries with children, etc., would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I'm Bryana Kappadakunnel, and I'm always glad to be able to have these conscious conversations around how we are raising our children, how we are showing up in the world, and how we are helping our kids learn how to show up in the world. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm a specialist in infant and early childhood mental health as well as perinatal mental health. So I really like to focus on families, new parents with very young children. I really believe so strongly in prevention and early intervention. And what that means is if we can get in early, the earlier the better. It doesn't mean if we intervene late or if we learn this information later, we're screwed. That's not what it means at all. It just simply means that the earlier that we can have access to this important information, for example, understanding ourselves and understanding our lives and what has happened to us in our lives, both on that individual level. So what did I experience in my childhood experiences? What type of relationship did I have with my own parents, and my own siblings, and, growing up? What was it like for me? As well as the societal aspect of growing up. So as I was saying to you before we hit record, I'm a millennial, I'm an older millennial, and I tend to speak to the Gen X and older millennial families, one, because I can really relate to their experiences personally, but two, I believe that as a generation, we've experienced a lot of hardship. We've experienced a lot of challenges that are just completely out of our control, a lot of things that have shaped our worldview, and a lot of collective and societal traumas. Absolutely. Really, for our generation. I think we were raised, many of us were raised by parents who had the American dream idea. And yet many of us see the reality of that not actually coming to fruition. We're not as we don't have our blinders on. We are aware, of the history of this country, of the systemic racism that this country was based on, and how it has a huge impact on every single person that exists in this country, whether you're aware of it or not. It either feeds into the disillusionment of your superiority, or it feeds into the reality of how inferior you're made to feel, depending on which side of the coin you are. And these are huge problems. We've got issues with our climate. We've got issues with capitalism and, the way that, it's not actually working out for young people today who are, saddled with debt. Yeah. And, minimum wage is laughable and it's unlivable. Housing is a crisis. Homelessness is a crisis. Gun issues, gun violence, school shootings are crises. I mean, we have so many crises at our hands. And I think as a result of the combination of these two things, both how we grew up, especially if you grew up in a traditional parenting paradigm. You do as I say because I said so. Get
Mhm.
the spoon, the hitting, the yelling, the screaming, the disorganization, the chaos, the violence, or even just the emotional checking out.
Yep.
You're not allowed to cry. Boys don't cry. Go to your room till you're ready to be happy and come out. Kind of all those typical traditional ways of being raised, as well as these complicated social factors. I think that is exactly what is propelling um, our generation into a much more conscious way of thinking about the world, thinking about our role in the world,
Yes.
thinking about how we want to teach our children to be in the world. As a mother of biracial children, inclusivity and a multiracial experience is crucial to me. And how I want my kids to grow up with a feeling of belonging. I didn't grow up with a multiracial experience, right? I grew up in a community that was mainly Italian people, and pretty much everybody looked like me and acted like me. I
Mhm.
didn't have I had very little exposure to anything that was different than me, and what I was exposed to was incredibly stereotypical. Am
Right.
I proud of this? Of course I'm not proud of this, but this is definitely how I was raised. And marrying outside of my race, I married a South Indian man, has taught me a lot about the way I've seen the world from a white view lens, and how and the issues that I've had to work through because of that, because of my own internalized superiority that I wasn't even aware of. I didn't even have a clue that I
Mhm.
thought my way was better and the Eurocentric way was better, because that's what you're told to
Right.
believe. And so, when I talk to parents about conscious parenting, they oftentimes think that conscious parenting is like just another way of parenting that has to do with, being the best type of parent that you can be for the child, and raising the best children, raising the most
Right.
empathic and the most resilient children. And so, like, what is the parenting style that I have to do that's going to ensure that I raise the most empathic and resilient kids? And the main piece of advice that I have for parents is, it's your own self work.
Mhm. Oh, isn't it?
For yourself.
Mhm.
Like, that is the heart and the mission of conscious parenting that I don't actually see fully reflected in other parenting revolutions. Not that respectful parenting, gentle parenting, etc. aren't important. They are important and they have their place. But conscious parenting is like another level, because conscious parenting is also, it's deeply rooted in healing of the
Yeah.
previous generation and the baggage from the previous generation that you have now absorbed. You have absorbed into your entire perspective and your entire worldview. And if you are unable to become conscious and aware of how that affects you on a daily basis, it will just become
Right.
implicit in how you pass it down to the child. And, one of the things that I think where maybe parenting has kind of went wrong, in especially like in the 90s and I would say early 2000s, was the helicopter era, which we're still definitely in,
Mhm.
where we don't want our children to experience any kind of pain. We don't want them to experience any kind of suffering.
Right.
This is coming from a place of fear. This is coming from a place that of pain and suffering are bad and must be avoided at all
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
That is a trauma response. I have
Mhm.
to avoid pain and suffering. It is an actual trauma response. So I'm not faulting helicopter parents for doing their helicoptering and trying to prevent their child from being in pain. I understand deeply where that good intention is coming from.
Right.
But one of the things I like to teach is we also have to look at impact. And what is the impact of preventing children from experiencing pain and hardship and suffering? It produces a generation of people who don't know how to be with their own pain. And I think one of the greatest wisdoms I have personally gained from teaching conscious parenting, as well as doing it myself with my own children, is my job is to not remove the pain and the suffering from my children's lives. I'm not going to be able to do that.
Right.
My job, my purpose is to teach them how to be with their pain and how to even evolve their pain. You know, I kind of came into conscious parenting perhaps like reluctantly and without even realizing that I was stepping into conscious parenting. I thought that I was going to be an actress. I thought I was going to do musicals. I love to sing. I love to dance. And it was a fantastic place for me because it meant that I get to be something I wasn't. And if I get to go up on stage and be someone I am not, then people will finally love me. But I didn't know that that's what driving it. It was all unconscious. I have to be something I'm not to get people to love me. Right. So many parents can very much relate to that feeling. So I'm in school, I go to NYU, Tish, I'm studying it. I make the decision the day I graduate, well, I don't want to do this. And I have no idea what I want to do. And found myself here in California, studying drama therapy, which, you know, someone was like, you could do drama therapy with kids. That would be so fabulous. I love the drama therapy. So then I started working in a therapeutic preschool and working with very young children. And that was when I was like, whoa, oh my God, it's the parents. It's the parents who need support. These children are hot messes, but like you take them out of the environment and you give them a positive experience, they still go back to the environment where they're hot messes because the parents are messy.
Root cause.
Yes, they're struggling.
Yeah.
They need help. And again, it was just this like metamorphosis of like, whoa, I'm seeing so much of my own life here, and this is triggering so much and bringing up so many of my own memories and experiences that I had just completely repressed, ignored, denied, or was gaslit and told were never even true.
Right.
Which again kind of almost like catapulted me into this world of reflective functioning. So this is something I talk about a lot with in terms of the research and why this approach is actually founded in evidence, and parents need to be told this information. It's very vital information. So the research on attachment prior to Peter Fonagy's work in reflective functioning used to say that however you learn to attach to your parent is how you will just repeat this pattern with your own children. And it's just it is what it is. So like if you learn to be secure with your own parents, then you will feel secure with your kids. But if you learn to be avoidant with your own parents, then sorry, like your kids are going to avoid you, and it is what it is. This cycle will there's no hope. It's just don't even try. So that's what we used to believe it was. And there wasn't a clear identifier of what actually breaks the cycle. And the number one thing that keeps coming back as the factor that breaks this cycle and changes how we attach to people. Attachment is our sense of relational security. It's our relational safety. It is the foundation. I want you to kind of think of it like a home. You build a home on a nice concrete slab. I don't care what kind of weather comes. It's going to be able to weather the storm. That's a secure attachment. You build a home on sticks and straw. Even the slightest storm is going to make this crumble. That's an anxious, avoidant, or disorganized attachment. So what is the factor that helps promote secure attachment? Well, it isn't what you're reading on Instagram. It's not home birthing. It's not breastfeeding. It's not bed sharing. It's not wearing your baby. It's not never letting your child cry or miss you, or, leaving your child for the first 3 years, all the things that you hear in attachment parenting. It is none of that. The number one factor is a parent's ability to reflect on their past, make sense of it, and understand how it shows up for them in the moment with their child.
Oh my
That's
God.
the number one factor.
That's it. Like, let's just pause and repeat. Like, that's so huge.
Yes. The number one factor for securing a child's sense of healthy attachment is the parent's ability to reflect on their past, understand what it meant for them, and how it affects them when they show up with their child. That's the number one factor. It's not it being perfect.
Right.
It's not never making a mistake. It's not always having the right thing to say or needing to go to the book, the script book that says, oh,
Right.
in this problem situation, then you say this and it'll all magically be fixed. It's none of that. It is simply your awareness. That is why conscious parenting is revolutionary, because we're not giving parents this like step-by-step guide on how to raise the perfect human being that they think they have. But instead, we're giving the parents the tools to understand themselves better. Because when you have this skill to know yourself and to know yourself in the moment, just like this is who I am right here in the here and now, you will be more open to understanding the child in the moment.
Of course.
You might even be more accepting of who this child is and as they're showing up for you. You know, for example, I'm a big personality, as you can tell. I'm big, I love to talk, I'm chatty, I'm intense. It's a very favorable personality to have in America. We love outgoing personalities, don't we? We
Right.
love people who kind of entertain us and make us and talk to us and make us feel comfortable by that.
Yep.
We don't like the opposite so much. Introverts we need to make them more like the extroverts, right? Shyness is this bad thing. If you're shy, this is bad. And now as the parent, it's my job to fix you and to make you less shy.
Right.
Your shyness is going to hold you back in life. This is our mentality. And really, I like to look at this as just different temperament styles.
Yeah.
And when you come to a place of full acceptance for yourself, and maybe even a deep respect for how you are and how you show up in the world without a judgment.
Yep.
Well, then you might be able to look to this child here in front of you who shows up in the world differently and appreciate, again, without judgment, the way that they show up and maybe even learn a thing or two.
Right.
I've learned a thing or two from my more introverted, shy child. He's taught me to observe more. He's taught me to listen more. He's taught me to notice more. This child teaches me to stop and look and actually smell the flowers. Well, I'd walk right by him. I have things to teach him and other things to think about.
Right. My long to-do list. Yeah.
But my little slower child teaches me to see the world a little differently. What a gift. And it's revolutionary to see our children as teachers.
Yes. Yep.
Who have something to impart to us. It isn't just this, I am your superior and you are my subordinate. And as your superior, you must listen to me. You must follow my direction. I know what's best for you. And I know a lot of folks listening to this literally heard those words growing.
Right.
What if we might know more than our kids? Sure, because we have more life experience. But what if it's actually the child who might know what's best for them? That's shocking.
Yeah.
That's a shocking piece
Total
of
reframe.
It's a complete reframe. Now, I'm not saying in all cases will a child know what's best for them. Certainly not in all cases or in every case, right? If my little toddler, for example, is running out into the street, I'm not going to be like my toddler. No. I'm going to certainly have boundaries and communicate that clearly. But if my child looks at their plate of food, this has happened before to me. We're eating scallops and pasta with a beautiful garlic lemon butter sauce. Did I mention that I was Italian? So I make this beautiful pasta dish one night. And my son said, no, I don't want to eat it. I don't want to eat it. I said, hun, I was not following my own advice. Usually I say, let the kid just, okay, that's fine. But I wasn't following my own advice. I wanted him to eat the freaking scallop.
Yeah, right. I made this for you.
I was like, gonna eat the scallop. So I tell him you need to have two bites of the scallops, and then you don't have to eat anything else. You don't even have to swallow it, honey. You can just spit it out if you don't like it. I do want you to put it in your mouth and see what you think. Big mistake. He ended up getting sick and vomiting because something about the scallop did not sit well with his body. But I forced it on him because I wasn't listening to him. He was setting a boundary with me.
Right.
And I was taking on my superiority complex. And as your parent, I know more and I know better than you, so you need to eat it. And he taught me a lesson that day. There's no need to force it.
Mm-hmm.
Some boundaries that a child puts up is important that we respect it. It might be a good opportunity for a child to build some negotiation skills, some collaboration skills.
Yeah.
You might find some middle ground. A child's no is not necessarily the absolute worst thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is all a part of conscious parenting, really learning how to listen to ourselves and listen to the child and find a sense of mutuality in it.
Yes.
Really appreciating the relationship, the reciprocity, the back and forth that we share with our children along this journey that we're sharing together.
Yep. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. There are so many nuggets in there that I just want to be like, okay, so how long do we have to unpack this further and to, but I really appreciate you kind of giving the backstory as to why conscious parenting is so important. And I think that what deeply resonates with me is I feel that in the world of parenting, we're often looking at like what's best for the children, right? Which is what we do as parents. We're always thinking through that lens. But this one really allows us to say, like, as parents, we matter too. Our experience, and I mean, it's essential that we find that worth and that dignity and that self-respect so that we can be part of the solution that can show up more consciously for our children.
100%. Yeah, we cannot forget the role of the parent in parenting.
Right.
Otherwise, it would be called childing.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, and part of being a parent is not just what you're doing for the child, but what are you doing for yourself? I know this is a silly example, but I saw Miss Rachel. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's fabulous speech therapist who makes these like amazing YouTube videos for kids, and she's just like magical. Her personality and everything, like she's just like the next Fred Rogers. I don't know. She's just so magical and wonderful. So she puts up on her social media page how she is now a full bucket parent. And she wasn't a full bucket parent before. She would like martyr herself, essentially, is what she was talking about. She would give and give and give and give to her kid, and then eventually just kept showing up so empty and so drained, and then was wondering why she wasn't enjoying the experience, or was guilt tripping herself for not enjoying the experience, or for needing and wanting time away to be able to replenish. And she just totally reframed it. I chose to be a full bucket parent. I do what fills my bucket, and then I show up for my child full, not only because that's what my child deserves, but because that is what I deserve. I'm probably paraphrasing what she said, but that was like the message that I took away, that when we show up as our full, whole, authentic selves. And what does that mean? Does that mean that like, it's only about like self-care and like, well, you're checking all the boxes for all the self-care? Like, sure, I guess. But the way I have like two main criteria for self-care that I think are not talked about enough that are really important. The first one is boundaries, which I definitely want to talk about. And then the second one is really acknowledging our strengths and our weaknesses and our challenges, and like honoring both.
Yes.
Being good with both.
Right?
Like being good with it.
Yeah.
I run mom groups. I've been running mom groups since 2016. So for however many years that is, 7 to 10 a week on average, anywhere from 10 to 15 moms in a group. And every time I bring this up, the question I get back is, well, how? Like, how do I honor my weaknesses?
Huh.
I don't know how to be okay with the fact that there are parts of me that aren't the best. And I don't have a specific answer to say to that. I almost feel like that's the journey. That's the that's the undoing of all of the projection of needing to be perfect and needing to always get things right and needing to never make a mistake, and that deep, deep sense of fear of failure that we all have, or many of us have. The achievement complex, the you got to be super productive complex in order to be seen as enough and worthy of love, and really embracing that the truth, the reality that I am worthy of love because I am, period.
Yes. Yes.
We are of nature. We are of nature. Human beings are a part of nature, the natural world. Half of what we do isn't of the natural world.
That's fair.
That's a whole other conversation. Regardless, we are of nature. So when you go outside and you look at the birds, you look at the trees, they are not doubting or questioning. They're not insecure about whether or not they are worthy of resources, of connection, of getting their needs met. They trust and they believe and they go out and they do what they do. We have forgotten this part of our nature, that we are worthy because we are, period.
Right.
And that is what I really want to see every parent I meet and every parent I know. I want to see them step into that and to own that and to appreciate that, because I know that when they plug into that's real source energy and deep divine love, honestly. When you step into that, you radiate that, you give that so effortlessly.
You're gonna make me cry. Yeah.
Do you see? You don't need me to tell you what to tell your kid.
Yeah.
Because it comes from this deep place of love for oneself. So how you are with your kid comes from that. And again, not perfectly. Sometimes the trees shake. Sometimes the birds squawk. It happens. You're going to do that too as a parent.
Yeah.
But either way, it's still rooted in deep love for your own glory, which is all of it. So there is a real mission piece to this, isn't there? It's a mission.
My gosh. No question. It is a whole new way of seeing yourself in the world, of seeing your role as mother in the world, and of who you are as an individual and what you're contributing to greater society and to that, into your little micro level family. Absolutely.
Yeah. I imagine a generation of children raised to think and believe this way. And honestly, to me, this is where deep empathy is born and bred. This is where true resilience is born and bred.
Absolutely.
When we're really cultivating that within ourselves and then sharing it with a child.
It gives permission, right? Like, when we continue to look at ourselves and look at our own self-worth through the lens of, I need to be perfect, I need to earn worthiness, I need to earn love, I need to earn my place at the table, our children see that, right? Even if we tell them messages otherwise, it's what we model. And so it absolutely starts with us first. No question.
Yeah. And this is, sometimes I feel like when I have these conversations, I'll get a couple, gosh, when I read this, I feel so guilty, I'm such a failure as a parent. it can be really triggering. I acknowledge that. It can be really triggering to hear that the ingredient to what we want for our children starts with us and relies on us. That can be very triggering to hear. And I think it can bring up a lot of unresolved wounds that we have. And I really encourage anybody who might be feeling triggered or feeling like they're failing to, first of all, know you're not failing. There's no such thing as failure, because there's no competition. There's no end goal here. This is, we are instead trusting in the evolution of things and believing that where you are right now in this current moment is exactly where you are meant to be. And when things are triggering for us, whether it's a message that we hear or it's an experience that we have with our child, that trigger is a teacher.
Yes.
It's literally showing up to help us understand, oh, what is this about for me? This is very valuable information. Do I feel open to exploring this, to understanding this? And if I don't, then don't. Just don't go there. If you don't feel open and you don't feel ready, don't go there. That is okay. I promise you the trigger will come back. But if you are open and you do want to explore it, you might find a little bit of healing.
Yes.
You might understand why it was so hard for you, why it might be hard to hear these kinds of messages, or why a certain experience with your child that keeps getting repeated is so difficult for you. You might be able to be like, oh, okay, I remember as a child, this used to happen to me, and this reminds me of that. And I'm reacting from my child place, who really just wanted to feel heard and loved and respected and understood. Oh, I see that within myself now. And then especially if you're in the context of being with your child, maybe this allows you to see, oh, maybe that's all my child is wanting to do. Maybe is to feel seen by me, heard by me, understood by me, and safe with me. Okay. So do I feel ready and open to try that? Even if it comes out sloppy.
Yeah, it will.
It will.
Yeah.
Let it be sloppy. Let it be messy.
Yep. I hear in that, like, come at yourself from a place of curiosity, not judgment.
Yes. Curiosity, observational, loving, understanding, compassion,
asking permission of yourself. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at a child, watch very young children. When they make a mistake, they're very curious about it. A very young child, like a toddler, when they throw something at another child's head, and the child is crying, they're like, oh, what's happening here? They're not hiding in shame.
Yeah, right.
They learn to hide in shame.
That's right.
That's a learned behavior. That's not the nature's way. The nature's way is to be like, what was that about? How can I understand that? What was that for me? And what was that like for the child? What is happening here? That's the nature's way. Nature's way is truly observational, curious. It's not judgmental. I invite parents, do that for yourself.
Yes.
You meet yourself with that. That's a high degree of love and compassion. Guess what? It will literally feel organic and natural, and even, dare I say, effortless to do that for the child. But it's a self-practice.
Yes.
Parenting is a practice. Parenting intentionally is a practice. It's like yoga.
Yep.
Parenting consciously is a practice. If we are kind of opening ourselves up to it, breathing through it, engaging with it on a regular basis, pretty soon you'll be doing your headstands. You'll be you'll be taking poses of it, I guess. I don't know. I don't do yoga. Can you tell?
No, you're in good company. No worries.
But I'm trying to kind of bring that metaphor for us, that it really is a practice. It isn't something that I just try once and, oh no, that didn't work for me.
Right.
It's a real intentional practice that you do get better over time. And then also your children mature.
Mhm.
Children mature, children are changing, children are constantly evolving and growing too. I think sometimes adults forget that they are in constant evolution,
Yes.
in constant
Oh, yes.
transformation as well.
Absolutely. I hear this and I really think that, oh no, I lost what I was going to say. Oh, the idea of like, there's so many beautiful things that we are told we should be teaching our children and showing our children, like wake up with the daily morning affirmations for them, right? And it's so easy for us to tell our children one thing, but then to turn the mirror and be like, I failed, or
Right.
I'm a failure, I can't do these things. And so when I hear you talk, I'm like, oh, it's truly taking the intention we have for our children and what we want in them and flipping the script and using it for ourselves as well. But it's almost starting with ourselves first, actually,
It is.
for it to be able to come out and flow into our children.
Yep. And that is actually a very good segue into boundaries, which is why we
I know. So sorry. And I'm aware of the time too. So are you okay?
I have a few more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries, because I
Okay.
know that was important to your audience. They wanted to know a little bit about
Yeah.
boundaries, and I want to talk to them about boundaries because boundaries are the most essential way to love yourself and to love everybody around you, is to have boundaries. Boundaries are, we want to like look at boundaries as like, this is what's okay with me. This is what works for me. This is what allows me to feel safe with you. That's why I'd mentioned earlier, a child's boundaries are really essential. We want children to learn how to say to adults,
I
this is
love
what
that.
feels good for me. But so many of us who are in the Gen X and millennial parenting generation, and even older or parents beyond that, never had the opportunity to have and exercise boundaries with adults or authority figures. And so there's a lot of fear around boundaries. A lot of us are people pleasers. We
Right.
deeply fear the idea that, well, if I set a boundary, then that means somebody will hate me,
Mm-hmm.
somebody
Mm-hmm.
won't love me, or I will disappoint them, or I won't be seen as the good, obedient girl or boy that I strongly need to be, because my obedience is what earns my favor.
Yep.
It's what earns my love. It's what earns my safety. So we really want to unlearn all of the things that are attached to having a sense of personal boundaries, which maybe is even like a sense of personal peace. Like, this is what keeps me peaceful. This is
Yeah.
what allows me to feel good with you. This is what allows me to feel safe in relationship with you. So I want people to shift how they understand boundaries.
That's
Boundaries,
essential.
it's not controlling another person's behavior. It's not saying, don't ever speak to me like that again, or else we're never coming here. That's not an effective boundary.
Right.
I just had a whole big video and big newsletter on the "you hurt me." You're hurting me. Stop it. That we might say to children. Stop it. That's, you're attacking me. You're hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. This is not an effective boundary, because these are not communicating clearly to the person that we want to be in relationship with what I need from you. So in the event of communicating to another adult who's behaving in a way that is inappropriate to us, hey, it's really not okay with me to be yelled at. Or, I love you so much, and unsolicited advice
Right.
just doesn't really, it's not really what I'm looking for right now. I understand perhaps where you might be coming from, but what I'm really needing from you is just some validation and some support.
Oh, it's so
Most
different.
likely, the person will respond, "Oh, well, I thought that was me giving you support. I didn't realize that
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't feel supportive." And then you're like, "Thank you so much. You're right. When I need advice, I will for sure ask, because I trust you and I believe you, if that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
So when I need advice, I will ask, but otherwise, just like hearing that I'm doing a good enough job, I think is what I really need from you right now." Hear how my boundary is communicated with love,
Yes.
with respect, but the
Mm-hmm.
love is coming from me, and that love for myself, and that was self-respect.
There you go. Yeah.
And when I communicate that to the other person, again, effortlessly, because I love them and because I respect them. I had to set a boundary with my aunt who smokes. And I have issues. I grew up around smokers, and this is nothing against smokers, but I just, it's a part of the trauma that I experienced. So I have some boundaries around people smoking cigarettes around my children. I don't want my children seeing it. I don't want them exposed to the secondhand smoke. This is my personal boundary that allows me to feel safe in relationship with people in my life. So when my aunt insisted on continuing to smoke behind the garage, pretending like I couldn't see, and then grabbed my child and kissed him on the lips, which is also another boundary that I have. I grew up with a lot of dysfunctional folks who are boundary pushers and completely really struggle with respecting boundaries. I had to be very clear with her. Auntie, it is not okay with me. This behavior is not okay. I am not okay with you smoking around my child, holding my child while you're smoking. I'm also not okay with you kissing my child on the lips, especially after I just asked you to please give him back to me.
Mm.
Now, here I'm giving this as an example because she was not receptive to my boundary, which is what I want people to understand. You may communicate with so much love and respect and compassion, and people still may not like it. You are not responsible for their reaction. So my aunt stormed off. She yelled and screamed. She looked like a child. I've told her that to her face, so I feel comfortable saying that. But she did look like a child, and she left, and everyone at the party blamed me. They blamed me. How dare you do that to her? So this is signs of dysfunction, everybody. This is dysfunctional. And many of us grew up with dysfunction.
Right.
And when you set boundaries, dysfunctional systems do not like boundaries.
Mm-mm.
Why? Because boundaries help us feel more functional.
Right. That's uncomfortable. We don't do this.
But if the system is set up to operate with dysfunction, what we say in family systems is it's going to push toward the homeostasis. What do I know? What do I feel comfortable with? If the level of comfort is dysfunction, this system will continue to operate trying to get you, the person who is setting functional boundaries, to go back into dysfunction. Don't take responsibility. It is, if you are a people pleaser, it is 100% the absolute hardest part.
No question.
Try not to take that bait. I understand you are upset that her behavior was like that, and you feel like I'm to blame. If that's how you want to get through this moment, I'm okay with that. I'm not accepting responsibility. I'm okay if you feel like I need to be blamed for it. That's a boundary. I'm okay with you being as you are, because remember, as I just said, boundaries are not about me controlling another person. Yeah. It's about me saying, here's how I'm willing to show up with you. You can feel how you want to feel about me, and I'm going to choose not to take that in. And
it's so much more peaceful. It's like you said, boundaries are there to create, like, I am peace within myself. And that's what I hear in that example.
Yeah. Boundaries with children, when we come from this place and we feel confident, comfortable in being able to exercise some boundaries for ourselves, boundaries with children really become so clear, because again, it's not about controlling a child's behavior. Sometimes we do need to limit dysfunctional behavior, hitting, kicking, throwing, etc. We might have boundaries around screens, considering how highly addictive they are. We might have some boundaries around that. And then we communicate those boundaries very, very clearly. I can't let you fill in the blank. Or I understand you really want another show, and we're all done with the television for today. We've reached our max time. So boundaries with children is really that art of being able to hold the boundary and not necessarily, I don't want to be like, you can't waver, because that's a little too inflexible. but knowing when you need to waver and when you actually really need to hold it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then always holding the feelings. All feelings are okay. And that's the art of boundaries with children, is being able to have both at the same time. I am turning the TV off and you're upset about it. I understand. We can cry as we go get our PJs on. Let's go together.
Yeah.
And you see what I mean? I'm doing both at the same time for the child.
Isn't that what it's all about though? Like as I think about just the complexity of what being a mother is and of parenting, right? It's constantly holding in opposing feelings at the same time, right? Like we might mourn our pre-motherhood self and also love everything about there is about being a mom. And it's being able to say like that both of these things can exist. It's sitting in the pain and the suffering with and being a part of, and not saying, no, that's not, we're going to, can't think of the word I'm looking for, reject. We're going to reject that part. No, it's saying, no, that's okay. You're safe to have that feeling. And we are also going to be doing this.
Right.
Both exist at the same time.
And that becomes, I find that parents become more confident in their ability to do that when, and I'm going to bring it all the way back to what we talked about in the very beginning, when they feel like they really know themselves and they are really assured in who they are and why they are the way they are. I really believe that the boundaries with the child becomes an extension of the love for the child. For many of us, boundaries really feel like this complicated thing that I have to do to teach my child how to be the best version of themselves, when it's really not about that. It's really about being in relationship. Relationships are hard. They're complicated. They're messy. They are nuanced, and they are unique. If you have a family of 4, you've got the parental relationship, you've got parent A relationship with child A and child B, you've got parent B's relationship with child A and B, you've got the relationship happening between the children, and then you've got the family relationship.
Right. Go figure.
That's just a family of 4. You add on more children, these nuances, these dynamics become more complicated. We need to stop trying to make it all make sense.
Yes.
Stop it.
Right.
Stop trying to make every little thing be all perfect. Like a perfect grid that I can totally understand. It's more like who described it? I had a client describe it so beautifully, like a Monet. From far away, you're like, wow, I totally get what I'm looking at. And then you come in close, and if you only look at each little piece, it's like, boy, this doesn't, I can't make out what I'm looking at.
Right.
So we want to be able to pull back, have perspective. That's so important. Having this perspective for all of these different nuances that are happening, I think allows us to have more grace, allows us to slow down, allows us to be more in the present moment and not take ourselves too seriously, and just appreciate the time that we have. So.
I am so appreciative of you. I feel a renewed sense of self-compassion and of compassion for all parents as a collective and our children after speaking with you. And I think that a missing piece as to why this is so important is the why that you spoke to, and how the essential importance of breaking some of these systems that are in place, or being part of the change. Might not be able to break them completely, but at least we can have conscious awareness around the decisions we make, the systems we choose to interact with in our own family system. So
amen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. This was beautiful. I appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.